they've all taken that responsibility upon themselves to represent that wing. And
I'm surprised Ro Khanna wasn't on that list.
Yeah, I didn't even see Ro Khanna on there. That's crazy. But do you want to go to Bernie?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Bernie Sanders, who was on PBS, and what was he talking about again?
Just a bunch of stuff. Let's play the whole clip.
Let's play the whole clip. All right, Bernie.
By a 5 million vote margin. But Democrats won't have a majority in the U.S. Senate. They have lost seats in the House, losses that exposed ideological differences between the progressive and the moderate wings of the party on issues from health care to policing. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont joins me now. Senator Sanders, thank you so much for being here. It is clearly a win for the Democrats in the White House. Joe Biden is the president-elect, but disappointment in the results in the Senate and the House. What went wrong?
Well, I wish I knew definitively, but I think the answer may be that Democratic candidates, appropriately enough, Judy, focused on the need to defeat the most dangerous president in modern American history, a pathological liar, somebody who was undermining democracy, and that's enormously important. But I don't think we did quite as good a job as we should have in speaking to working families who today are in probably worse economic shape than any time since the Great Depression. And we did not make the case that we're prepared to take on powerful special interests. We're prepared to raise that minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, provide equal pay for equal work, make it easier for workers to join unions, create millions of good-paying jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, making public colleges and universities tuition-free, expanding healthcare to all people. So I think we probably were not as strong as we should have been in explaining what a progressive economic agenda would mean to working families throughout the country.
And pause
but
it.
Now that Democrats are going to have fewer seats in the House.
That's what the data is showing. That's what we keep finding out over and over again. That's why the Republicans were able to make inroads with working class communities, because they had an economic message. They were talking about real life shit. They were able to convince people that they were the ones who were going to fight for working people, because the Democrats didn't say anything about it. The Democrats just said, Trump bad, we're good. You know, we are going to look out for like good things and not do any bad things. Trump's going to do bad things. So they constantly just made it about attacking Trump. And they didn't even make it about attacking Republicans or conservatism or anything like that. It was just this guy, Trump is bad. Republicans are okay, but this one is bad. So a lot of people voted out Trump, but they voted for the Republican, because the Democrats said the Republicans are good, and the Republicans said the Democrats are evil.
Right, because there was a difference between how the down ballot fared and the top of the ticket fared. There was all
of the messaging was Trump bad.
Right. It was the party's not bad. It needs to be returned to normal. The party's okay.
We need a strong Republican Party.
Yeah, we need a strong Republican Party. That to me, if I'm taking that at somebody's word, if I'm trying to get rid of Trump and I'm just listening to the Democrats' messaging, then I'm like, okay, I'll vote for Biden, but then I'll make sure that the Republicans still keep control of something.
Or like, if you're convinced, like if you happen to be one of the handful of Republicans that switched over and voted for Biden, like that they keep claiming are out there, which, you know, there's a few percent, but I don't think it's more than before. If you happen to be one of them and you're convinced that Trump is bad, you are going to do everything you can to act like he's the aberration and the rest of the party is salvageable. Right?
Yes.
Because so even if you happen to be one of those rare never Trump Republicans, you're going to vote for Biden and then down ballot all Republican. It's just objectively, it's a terrible strategy. Anybody who wasn't just completely corrupt would have seen that it was a terrible strategy, and they went with it anyway. And it's just hurting them all up and down all over the country, all these different races. Like, just absolutely nuts, man.
No, I mean, that's let's go back to the video, but yeah.
Did you see the thing about finish this.
All right, hold on.
House, now that you may have 50 seats in the Senate, but you may end up with 48, are you going to be able to do the kinds of things you just listed, Senator Sanders? You're going to have a great opposition from Republicans and not even support from all Democrats.
Well, look, I think all of the ideas that I have talked to you about, Judy, and many more, are popular ideas. I mean, the truth is that the American people understand that our current healthcare system is dysfunctional and cruel and wasteful. They understand that $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a starvation wage. They understand that in the richest country in the history of the world, it's insane that our infrastructure is falling about, that we are not addressing the existential threat of climate change. That is what the American people understand and want to see us address. And our job is to explain to the American people where the opposition is and put pressure on Republicans, especially those coming up for election in 2 years, that they have got to do what the American people want.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we know President Trump, as you mentioned, received 71 million plus votes. So Republicans are going to point to that and oppose, we assume, much of the Democratic agenda. So my question is, are you going to have scale back expectations for what President Biden is able to accomplish?
Look, I think we start off with the agenda that speaks to the American people. What I want all over this country is that ordinary Americans, including those who voted for Trump, you know what? They can't afford health care. They can't afford to send their kids to college. They don't want veterans sleeping out on the street. They don't want to destroy their car by going over some pothole. They want action to improve the lives of working families. So does everybody else in America. So I think the very first thing you do is make the case. Here are the problems. Here are the solutions. And then you can sit down with the Republicans and see where we go. Now, my hope is that in early January, Democrats will pick up 2 more seats in the Georgia runoffs, and that will make our life a lot easier.
One thing about the election, Senator, I'm sure you've heard the complaints, the comments from Democrats, moderate Democrats, who say all the talk about defunding the police, using the term, allowing Republicans to repeatedly accuse Democrats of being socialists.
Oh, get her, Bernie.
Hurt Democrats. And they are saying the idea that you're going to move to a Green New Deal, that you're going to move to some form of dramatic form of police reform, that will only hurt Democrats going forward. What do you say to your Democratic colleagues about that?
First of all, I am not aware, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I don't know that there are any Democratic candidates who talked about defunding the police. Do we want police department?
Wait a minute, Bernie. Got to correct you there. I know Cori Bush did run on defunding the police.
Cori Bush did.
Yeah, she did, and she won.
Reform so that innocent African Americans are not shot and killed. Of course we do. So do the vast majority of the American people. In terms of some of the arguments against us, the problem is they're just not true. To the best of my knowledge, Judy, something like 100 candidates, 100 congressional candidates ran on Medicare for All. Do you know how many of them lost? 0. I think one candidate who ran on a Green New Deal lost. And the reason for that is that these proposals are popular proposals. So the idea of blaming our ideas on their defeat, I'm not sure that that's true. I think the converse may be true. That a lot of people out there were listening to some Democrats and saying, what do you stand for? Are you going to represent us when we are hurting so much? Do you have the guts to take on powerful special interests? Are you going to raise that minimum wage? Are you going to fight for health care for all? I don't want to go bankrupt because I can't afford to pay my medical bill. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to make sure that my kid can afford to go to college? So I would turn that argument around and say to some of my more conservative Democratic friends, maybe the problem is that the working class of this country did not perceive that you were prepared to stand up and fight for them.
2 other quick questions, Senator. One is there's talk of your being interested in being labor secretary in a Biden administration. Are you interested in doing that?
Well, let me just say this, Judy. The The working class of this country is in a lot of pain right now. Unemployment very, very high. Wages
but he's racist because he
abysmally
said
low.
working class.
We have
He only
unequal
cares
pay
about white people.
There's the
for
dog whistle.
work.
There's
Women
the
are
dog
getting
whistle,
paid
everybody.
much less. Workers can't form unions. People are not getting the overtime. They're not getting the pensions they're entitled to. So I am going to do whatever I can, whether in the Senate or wherever, in
Stop
fighting
being
for
so
the rights
racist,
of working
Bernie.
families.
Why are you
If
being so
I am
racist?
asked to become a member of the Biden administration, and if I'm given a portfolio that can make a difference to the working families of this country, would I accept it? Yes, I would.
And do you have a favorite for Treasury Secretary?
Well, I think there are a number of good candidates
Gee.
out there, but I think Elizabeth Warren has a track record
God, he's too
of
nice.
standing up to very powerful
What do you want him to
Wall
say?
Street interests. I think
I
she
would
knows
like
the
her-
issue
I would like her to
backwards
start-
She called
and
me
forwards.
sexist.
And I think she would
I would
be
like
a very
him to start
powerful,
playing snake jazz on
Secretary
his
of the
phone.
Treasury.
Yeah,
Even giving
that
up
would've
a
been
seat
sick.
in the Senate?
Well, I think, without going into all of the details, I think there are ways to protect that seat.
We will leave it there. Senator Bernie
The Vermont
Sanders of
governor,
Vermont, we
I don't know
thank
what
you.
the Massachusetts guy said, but the Vermont governor said he would appoint somebody who would caucus with the Democrats.
Yeah.
And Vermont has a law that says if they're appointed, they have to have a special election within 3 months. And I
Right.
don't think Vermont's going to elect a Republican
No,
senator.
they'll find somebody that Bernie will endorse, and then they'll go ahead and elect who Bernie
It's
endorses.
just nuts. Like they think that the left messaging hurts them because the only people that these politicians, these beltway people ever talk to are other rich and powerful people in politics or the media, like swamp creatures. They only talk to them, right? So they think that, oh, this guy I met, this conservative I met, he said that he didn't vote for Democrats because to defund the police.
Mhm.
So that message sticks with them because it's the one example they heard in their real life. Meanwhile, they don't know any of the millions of people who are just begging for politicians to represent them and dying for somebody to talk about police problems, dying for them to talk about healthcare and the environment. We see that those are the popular policies. That's what people want the government to do. Them trying to deny it using these like anecdotal situations that happen with other PMCs coming at them and telling them this, it's just, that's the best faith reading I can give it.
Right.
You can say maybe it's just because they have outsized influence when they talk with like these media people, these TV people, these other millionaires. They talk to them, and that's what makes them think that the policies are unpopular, and they won't read the polling or they don't believe the polling or I don't know what. But there's been like every single poll you see, Medicare for All has very high approval
The last
within
one
the party.
the last one I saw was a 72% approval rating from a Fox News poll that called it a government-run health care plan.
Yeah, and that's all voters, not even just Democrats.
Right.
It's like 88% of Democrats, I think,
Yes,
and
it's close to
50-something
a
percent
90%
of
approval rating.
Republicans. Yeah, there's no excuse to not go for that. Like, there's no excuse to at least say you're going to fight for that. You have to take that one off the table, right? If you could just embrace that and pretend to fight for that, that would take it out of the Republicans' quiver. Instead of them being able to say, oh, they're going to do crazy socialized medicine and having that be an effective attack, you make it so that they would never dream of saying that. Because that's how it is in other countries, like in Canada and the UK. If the conservatives would never dream of attacking the liberals with that kind of message because everybody likes their healthcare system. You would never say, oh, these crazy socialists, look at their crazy socialized healthcare. You would never make that kind of attack because it's popular. It's like attacking Social Security now. You don't attack it because it's universal and everybody has it. If you take the policy and you embrace the policy, it turns it into your biggest strength and not your biggest weakness. And I'm just so sick of them having to protect every single donor source. You have to just cut bait with one. Just take healthcare off the table. There's plenty of money for you to suck up from weapons manufacturers and fucking like, whoever, like contractors and real estate developers and bankers and social media companies. There's plenty of money out there without taking the healthcare money. Just take one industry and say, you're no longer part of our donors. Just take one industry you're willing to go against, like they did with fossil fuels largely.
Right.
Like Democrats don't really fundraise from fossil fuel anymore because it's become so toxic. You need to add healthcare to that industry or to that list.
Yep. I mean, that's there's plenty of money to go around. They can go and ask any one of these billionaires to, and they could just take healthcare off the table. It's wildly popular. I mean, what can you say? But let's see the next thing we could go to, bro.